Welcome to Goldfish, where we explore the future of cybersecurity and learning. I'm Dan Thornton, and today we're joined by Erick Prospero from Ninja Tropic. Erick is the founder and chief ninja of Ninja Tropic, a creative agency that specializes in crafting engaging video-based learning experiences. Erick, thanks for joining us.
Definitely. I appreciate the invite, Dan, and I'm excited to chat today.
Cool. Thanks very much. Erick, for people who don't know Ninja Tropic, what does the company do and who are you guys serving?
Well, we are essentially a microlearning studio. We're really big in the microlearning space. We have one of the largest microlearning portfolios. If you go to YouTube and you search microlearning examples, you're going to see a lot of our work. It's something we're very passionate about. With that being said, there's different flavors of microlearning, different types of medias and approaches. And what we're really good at in the context of microlearning is interactive video. So we have one of the largest portfolios in that space. Unfortunately, we're not very industry specific. We work with cybersecurity content, medical content, soft skill development, but we are very niche in our flavor in terms of style of content that we produce.
Okay. Fantastic. And the companies and size organizations that you serve, is it cross sector or are you targeting sort of enterprise size organizations?
As a founder, I'm sure you guys have gone through this in terms of focusing on a niche, right? Where's the desired focus? Who's the person we're specifically reaching out to? We work with a plethora of industries, company sizes, different organizations. So our largest customer segment, it's a mixture between enterprise, corporate training, so companies that are teaching their employee base that really care about delivering a good brand experience to employees. The other segment of that is going to be customer education. Now, customer education splits off into two categories: product education, as well as, this is somewhat of a niche group, but association training. A pretty big portion of our customer base is tied to trade associations. Here in the States, there's a trade association for practically every industry, right? Every single medical condition, every single type of trade, even in the nursing space, there are dozens of associations that deliver great online education. And we work really well with them, primarily because they have external audiences. They're focused on delivering a really good customer experience. And then lastly, because of our structure, it's just a nice alignment with budget.
And Erick, are you guys focused purely on the content creation side of things, or have you got the online platform to host that as well? How does that product look? How does that solution or delivery to the market look?
We are only focused on taking business problems or specific learning outcomes, converting that into a content format that has a great learning experience. And in terms of platforms, we don't have our own platform. We technically do. We've built one specifically for patient education, but it's nothing we push. It was specifically for a customer that we still own access to. We're very platform agnostic. So a lot of our clients reach out to us and they're going through this LMS transformation, or they have a specific need for a type of training, and then we typically just refer them to an industry partner. So they'll come to us with a problem. If we don't think it requires custom content, or if it's really more of an LMS related issue, we'll push them along to the best option.
Okay, brilliant. Erick, let's dive into your career journey. What led you to starting Ninja Tropic and get into the corporate training space to start with?
Well, it was a combination of supply chain management and the trade associations. So actually, when I say trade associations, it was the Institute for Supply Management. I was put in charge of their e-learning department. And I'm not sure if you ever worked with one of these. They function as a nonprofit. They're typically low budget organizations. They're very well known for having the network of industry experts. They have a lot of content, and a lot of them are going through this digital transformation process. And in that time, we were doing the exact same thing. I was tasked to find an LMS, to find different options, and to produce a lot of content. And my boss, I've told this story hundreds of times, but she was a very scary boss, Mary Lou Peck, and I'm sorry for name dropping, but we can tag her later. But she just scared the hell out of me, and I was always worried about just irritating her or doing anything wrong. But she had this vision for an engaging microlearning series. We needed to develop content that competes with these corporate partners or these corporate entities out there that are venture backed, that have a lot of money and resources, and that was a challenge that I had to solve. We had about 3 people on the team. We had a handful of freelancers, but it just didn't really function too well. And when I went to other agencies, they basically laughed out our budget. They almost knew we wouldn't be able to solve or find a solution with them because they had experience in the association budget. So from that point, okay, I thought, you know what? I have to go and find a solution abroad. And the first place I went to was companies in India. And I'm not sure if you've worked with different companies. Of course, every experience is different, but it was just a frustrating experience. There was a communication lag. There was a creative misalignment. Now, maybe the industry has changed. Maybe we just spoke to the wrong partners, but it was just not working for us. So another cost-effective option to scale the content that we actually needed was the Philippines. Same issue, right? Ran into some problems. And so I realized, okay, I need to bring this onshore by finding instructional designers here, creating a system in terms of design architecture here. And then I found and partnered with somebody in El Salvador. We worked within the same time zone, and we created this hybrid nearshore, onshore system. And we just got really good at interactive video content. So we scaled up content production for that company I was working with. And at the time, I was hiring them as vendors. And eventually, if you're my friend, it's a matter of time before I just pitch you a business idea, right? As an entrepreneur, it's a habit. I'm sure I'm going to pitch you some ideas too. Somebody took the bait, Carlos, my business partner. This is impressive for an American. He speaks English, French, Spanish better than I do. Just brilliant guy. And the alignment with American culture was important too, because we worked as a team. We needed to collaborate. And I mean, he was just cool. He kept talking about Iron Maiden and the concerts that we'd go to. So it just felt like I was dealing with somebody from a southwestern state as opposed to Central America, which surprisingly, it's a 2-hour flight from Houston.
The time zone alignment is everything. It's I can imagine India and Philippines is a big difference from where you are, and trying to work like that to just be a non-starter. So yeah, amazing that you found that resource.
Absolutely. And even just to share screens with an artist or to talk through a problem, because now there's a workaround that they can present. It's okay, well, you can talk with an account manager during the day, but the crew that actually does the work works at this time. And for creative work, sometimes you just have to see and connect with the person, and you want to feel that team alignment. And actually, to be honest with you, sometimes we get into debates on our side, but we typically don't target businesses outside of our time zone. So even from a sales perspective, we don't go for European RFPs because we know, okay, great, there's a lot of good companies over there that are great at that we could work with or suggest, but we're a big fan of just that collaborative approach. And we know the type of vendors and relationships we like to have. And again, we do the same thing with our customer base. We specifically stick to time zones and cultures that there's just a nice alignment with.
That's great. Since you got into the learning industry, Erick, what's been the biggest shift in education and training that you've seen since you started? And that can be technology, that can be content creation. What would you say has been the biggest shift that you've seen over your time?
I hate to sound cliche because everyone talks about this right now, but AI, and I'm sure it's just a natural part of the conversation. And I just have not seen a shift where people are struggling to keep up with. For 2 years, learning departments were panicking about, okay, what's possible, what's not possible, what's next. And there's still a bit of mystery there. The good news is I think expectations are finally starting to, I don't want to say decline, but there was this initial hype phase where everyone thought, oh man, this is going to change everything, right? This is the new meta. Everything's going to be powered by AI, and we have to do everything tied to this. And our hype was here, right? And now I think we're finally past that hype phase where we're realizing, okay, this is what it's useful for, and this is what it's not useful for, and this is how we can practically use it on a day-to-day basis. But I still think that there's a world of potential in terms of change. And again, but it's hard to group everything tied to AI because there's content generation platforms, there's data analysis, there's agent processes. And so it's and again, they're all progressing at different paces too. We do a lot of experimenting. That's something we're very active with. And still, we're trying to prepare as much as possible for the next thing. Because, I mean, there was a time and place, I don't know, just about a year ago where everyone's thinking, okay, great, what industries are going to be automated? Or what parts of what industries are going to be automated? And to a point, there was a list with certain, like, for example, voiceover, right? Voiceover's been around, but it's finally at that quality phase where voice artists are not necessarily as in demand as they used to be. And by the way, I used to be against AI voiceover, right? It sounded choppy. It didn't deliver a good experience. We would never use it. And I just got frustrated when I would listen to content with it. I can't even tell the difference anymore. And I think we are at that phase with video soon as well.
Yeah, the voiceover is a big one. I was going to say, where have you seen the most real impact from AI yourselves actually in creating content? Would you say it's the voiceover side of things? Is that where you're seeing the most impact, or is it actually in the video creation itself?
So there is a cycle in terms of content production, or at least of innovation. First, there's speed. AI or any type of tech can create something very quickly. And so the analogy I like to use is the digital camera. I don't know if you remember when digital cameras came out. The first photos that were taken with digital cameras were horrible, right? They were pixelated, they weren't great, but it was quick, right? Anybody could take a digital camera and you had this thing that you got a photo. The next phase beyond that is quality. Now there's advanced cameras that can take amazing photos that really don't require a lot of experience with. The more traditional cameras, you kind of have to know what you're doing to use them. But then this quality phase came and things were set. And then eventually we had this true transformational impact. And so with that being said, when it comes to our industry, the space that has been impacted or the specific area, it's content production, not in the form of media. Media is still at the feet. Just last month, we came out with an update with ChatGPT images, and now they got text right and images right. So the quality is getting there. But when it comes to content production, I'm specifically referring to script writing and the use of LLMs to generate scripting and storyboarding, ideation, because everyone's doing this. I mean, and if you're not, you should be. Of course, you have to do it responsibly, making sure you're using platforms, but we have an expectation that our instructional designers are using this. I mean, I've been to conferences where there's a lot of restrictions and there's data concerns, and rightfully so, right? You have to be careful as to how you're using it. But there's platforms out there that are vetted, that are trusted, and the efficiency benefits there. So far, what I've seen in the industry is, and even on our side, instructional content scripting used to be a big challenge, right? We would find clients that wanted to produce their own scripts. It was just a slow, tedious process where we would take months. Now our clients are finally on content. They don't want to outsource it. They have a system for it. If not, they give to us. We're going to tell them, look, AI is a part of our process with certain types of content. Now, if it's strictly confidential, we don't touch any of it. We do it the traditional way. But what I've seen so far is massive efficiency. The quality is there. Not only that, it comes to production output. Companies have it, right? Instructional designers are capable of doing more with less, and it's great. So I've actually seen a difference in hiring practices within the industry because now we have an expectation that our instructional designer should be able to complete the work twice as fast. And content is everything. I mean, you can design a microlearning unit, you can create really cool media, but if you don't have the story structure, if you don't have the actual substance there, you're going to have a useless asset.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely what we're seeing. I'd say that storyboarding, scripting bit is huge. It's just saving hours and hours. And yes, you're needing to go back and you're needing to safety check everything and making sure everything is legit. But it's just saving so much time to allow you to then start getting creative. And the VO thing is big. I mean, we still love using our human voiceover artist, but with the translation stuff, translation is massive. It's something that we just couldn't touch previously because it was, budget wise, it was out of touch to be able to go to these translation agencies and get humans to translate your stuff. It would be months of work. That's been a huge thing, I think, for the content that we're seeing and that we're producing as well. Has been a huge impact there, which is really exciting to be able to sort of expand and offer more localization just because it's finally affordable to do it. Where are you guys seeing the most demand right now from customers with regard to your content? What topics? You mentioned a lot of the associations, but are you seeing specific topics that is it skills based? Is it upskilling? Is it management, leadership, compliance? Where are you seeing the most of your demand?
There's been a big focus on upskilling and refining ability of employee bases. And this is either companies focusing on their employee base or, again, our association clients creating content that's going to advance an industry. With a lot of the automation out there or the government contracts or changes, the political changes that are happening, we're seeing a need for people to reskill, right? There's certain industries are being wiped out. I mean, even if you were to I told you I was going to get political, but even if you were to look at, for example, DEI here in the States, that was a portion of the population that was employed. And I'm talking about people who worked in DEI, like HR segments or even learning and development. There was training that was required and positions specifically dedicated for this. And now there's a huge shift in terms of, hey, is this really necessary? Are we going to be doing this again? Does it have that strategic importance? There's no incentive for it because the government's not necessarily pushing it anymore. And so the big thing we've seen is just the need for local companies here to upskill American workers and make sure they're prepared for this new wave of jobs that are coming. And so it's been really interesting. And with that being said, cybersecurity is also a very important topic. We consistently have different types of cybersecurity requests. Trip7 is one of our clients. They produce content. It's like microlearning content. They also do compliance awareness content. But there's also companies asking for customized microlearning for their employee base too, which is kind of interesting too, because I know there are really cool solutions out there, like what you guys are doing specifically for cybersecurity awareness, considering that people are usually the biggest threat, and cybersecurity problems are caused by just careless people or maybe unaware people. We're consistent. That's still a relatively big priority. We'll see a lot of requests for that as well.
Yeah, interesting. Tell me, Erick, what's been the hardest part of growing the business so far?
That's a good question. Honestly, sticking to what we're the best at. And if you were to ask, okay, look, what's something I wish I would have done sooner or changed? It's just focusing on less, targeting this specific group of people with these problems. And we are finally doing that now. And the funny thing is we had a set of skills that we're great at, but then we try to be everything for everybody. And about 4 years ago, we realized, you know what, this isn't working, right? The projects are more complicated. There's just better solutions out there in this space. Like we don't have to do everything. And so we refined our methods. We leaned into what we were already great at, which was microlearning, interactive video content, the transition from problems to content to engaging learning experiences. And that's been a very fun experience for as an entrepreneur. It's kind of tricky because you have to go through the process of realizing, prototyping something and trying a system out and realizing, okay, the market's not there for it. It's either something we're not great at or there's just better options out there. I really do think focusing on a specific niche and to what we're great at has been one of the biggest principles that I've learned this past few years.
Yeah, that's great learning. And then finally, Erick, if you could solve one major problem in your company or the industry right now, what would it be?
If I could solve one major problem, it would be the collection of data. And it's very frustrating because a big part of our culture here at Ninja Tropic is creating work that is meaningful. And when I say meaningful is we create cool stuff. If you can go to our YouTube channel, you'll see, again, I like to brag about this, but just a lot of great stuff that looks different from what everyone else does, because it doesn't look like a click next course or those like recorded webinars or a PowerPoint format. We put effort and we put a lot of heart into making something that's engaging and dynamic. But at the end of the day, engaging and dynamic doesn't necessarily move the needle. And the problem we realized is, okay, we need to be able to track the impact of our content, right? If there is a way for us to actually measure that this type of, because we're biased, right? I'm going to tell you microlearning is great. You're going to feel amazing about your specific brand of microlearning for cybersecurity. And I think what we do is amazing, but I want to prove it. The challenge we always have is how do we collect the behavioral data off the platform? And so we can create this amazing dynamic content. We can put it on an LMS. We can structure a curriculum around this. But I want to know, is the behavior actually shifting? And there's ways to do it, right? There's certainly correlation measurements that you can track, but that's one of the biggest challenges I've had is clients will reach out to us and they'll say, okay, great, we have this sales problem or we have this safety problem. Safety is a little easier because you could just measure accidents, right? There's specific matrix that you can align to it, but they have a business problem, but they're not tracking anything tied to it. So there's nothing we can measure against. Of course, we're going to help them. We create this dynamic content. They like what we've delivered. The biggest challenge that I would love to solve is, okay, how do we actually measure behavioral change and align it to the content we're creating?
After the training has been done.
And it's been doable, right? A lot of times there's measurements, there's surveys, but then how do we convince management to say, let's spend the time on it. Let's wrap this up in a nice bow and actually take the measurement, because a lot of times we'll build out this structured content. Everyone loves it. It's great. We get good feedback on the platform. There's high scores that we can get on the platform, but that's it, right? And sometimes those are vanity metrics or superficial. And it's just about how do we take it one extra step further and maybe conducting some sort of survey or analysis post.
Yeah. You put it beautifully. It's a really, really important piece. And it's certainly something in the cybersecurity space that is key, because we're trying to teach people, we're trying to educate people to change their bad behaviors. and become more secure through behavior change. And that in turn will protect themselves, it'll protect the businesses, but it's measuring that change. Alex Hormozy, listening to a talk of his the other day, and he spoke about learning and education. And he said that if the learner is not changing behavior, it's not education, it's entertainment. We can read these books, we can do these courses, we can do the quizzes at the end of the courses, we can show completion, we can do all of this stuff. But unless we walk away from that training experience and actually change what we are doing for the better, we haven't learned anything. Being able to measure that afterwards as educators and learning providers, it's being able to see the rest of the journey and be able to capture that is really key. So that's really well identified. I love that. Yeah, cheers.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're still trying to figure it out. And again, there's certain tools that you can use tied to API integration or even surveys. Ultimately, we do see the end result that can either be tied to sales or in your case, certain incidents tied to cybersecurity. But what are the data points in between where we can draw a cleaner picture with correlation? So we're working on it. We have found certain options. Then it's just getting follow through, because a lot of times we start harassing our clients like, no, we got to measure this to make sure it's working. It's something we always push for and ask for, and they appreciate it too. And by the way, it's something you can use ChatGPT for. We even pull out our phone and like set it up on a shared screen to start talking to it to think, okay, we have this scenario, we have this problem. This is why we're creating the content. This is the type of content we're producing. What are some opportunities to actually measure or track? And it gives you some pretty good ideas. Very quickly, and something that we can run across with a client too. So that's one of those impacts that we've experienced, and it's just amazing. Of course, it's something we could have thought of, but it would have taken a day or two. But for us to be able to pull up a scenario and just get instant ideas, man, I love this new world.
Yeah, it would have taken a day or two to then collate it and put it together. And then it's pulling people in to do workshopping and pulling people away. It's very human resource intensive to then do that. Whereas you can bring it up and run through some ideas and throw it around. There's huge impact to be had there. Erick, before we wrap up, can you let our listeners know how they can learn more about Ninja Tropic and connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Erick Prospero, Ninja Tropic. If you Google me, you'll find me on LinkedIn. We are a big fan of our YouTube channel as a interactive video learning studio. And we're a big fan of showing good work. So you can definitely find us there. All you have to do is search microlearning examples, microlearning content, and you're going to see our channel. And again, it's where you can see a lot of our best things. And not only that, there's experts on there. There's different vendors, different companies that speak. Actually, in fact, we even do a section where we highlight certain microlearning platforms. And it'd be great to showcase what you guys do as well there. And we're trying to create a resource where if you're interested in creating anything tied to microlearning or finding a microlearning solution, that's going to be the hub.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Erick. Yeah, we'll definitely put some links there for guys to find that. Thanks very much for sharing your insights today, Erick. It was fantastic and super, super interesting. Thank you very much for joining us.
Dan, I'm humbled and honored to be here, and I definitely appreciate it. Look forward to chatting again.
Thanks very much, everyone. Please subscribe and follow us to stay updated with insights from leaders shaping the future of learning and cybersecurity. Have a great day, everyone. Cheers.